Hi, everyone. This is Frank Nunez with Teachly University, and it has been quite a while since my last lecture, and it's great to see all of you. And thank you for joining me today in my newest lecture on The Magic of Believing by Claude M. Bristol. So, as I make this video, we're now approaching the end of 2023 and moving into 2024. And I wanted to create this video really as sort of a recap on a lot of what I've discussed in many of my lectures, which I think all boils down to one very important factor idea, and that is that our beliefs, what we believe about ourselves and the world around us, can really shape our reality and our personality, and vice versa. So, what we choose to think about inwardly, what thoughts we entertain on a consistent basis that shape our beliefs can shape our reality and our circumstances and the outcomes in many aspects of our lives. And I came across Claude M. Bristol's work, The Magic of Believing, recently. I was actually listening to the audiobook of Claude M. Bristol by Mitch Horowitz and the accompanying audiobook that went along with it. That was The Magic of Believing Action Plan. And Mitch Horowitz is someone I've followed over the past few years. He's written a lot of books and created a lot of audiobooks on many of the personal growth titans, I like to call, of the 20th century, like Claude M. Bristol, Neville Goddard, Napoleon Hill, and others. And I became fascinated, I think, with Claude Bristol's work because of Mitch. And I want to introduce this to you today and kind of dive into his work a little bit and some of his ideas on our beliefs and how they can shape our world. So I'll start with a quote from The Magic of Believing, where Claude says that, however, I would like to point out that hard work alone will not bring success. The world is filled with people who have worked hard but have little to show for it. Something more than hard work is necessary. It is creative thinking and firm belief in your ability to execute your ideas. The successful people in history have succeeded through their thinking. Their hands were merely helpers to their brains. And I feel like this is a very important quote from Claude Bristol because there's a common theme that I've seen in his work and Think and Grow Rich and The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles and other books, is the idea that of dismissing this notion that hard work alone is what is necessary to bring about our desired results. Because how many of us, or how many people do we know for that matter, that work hard, that work incredibly hard, but yet they're nowhere closer to where they want to be? There's the idea of think smarter, not harder. I think this term has gotten some negative connotations over the years, I think, in the personal growth space, but I think there is a point to it, that it's about focusing on the actions that yield the most results. But more importantly, it is getting into the flow of life where we're not trying to force outcomes. Rather, we begin to embody and become what it is that we seek. And that starts with our beliefs. In believing that what we want is possible, but more importantly, feeling that what we want is tangible in our lives, that it can actually happen. And when we begin to feel the idea of the wish fulfilled, as Neville has said in many of his works, then it helps us with the action part. We have to meet this process halfway. And what I don't like about the terms like manifestation or law of attraction, even though there's nothing wrong with them, is that I think that there's this idea that if you simply think of $1 million, it's going to magically show up in your bank account, or a pot of gold is going to show up in your living room the next day. That's not what this is. It is about changing our beliefs and believing and focusing on what it is that we want and believing that what we want is possible and that the results will happen through very familiar conventional channels. If, for example, we believe or desire to want a more fulfilling, desirable job that can bring us a higher income, then this can occur through action and through our beliefs in ways that are conventional to us. It could be that we can receive a phone call from a former employer who has a specific role just for you. That'll be perfect for you and that has a higher salary. It could be because of an email you sent to somebody, to an acquaintance, or a potential customer who may have a position who offers you a job, and so on and so forth. So it's through conventional means or conventional channels that through our beliefs can bring about the results that we want. And when we try not to force an outcome and go through the flow of life, then I believe that's when things begin to happen, because we no longer try to force outcomes, rather we let go of the outcome itself. Desires and goals are important, but when we become obsessed with them, then it negates the whole benefit and process of pursuing our dreams and desires. So some things to think about as I introduced this idea of the magic of believing by Claude Bristol. So then Claude says that thought is the original source of all wealth, all success, all material gain, all great discoveries and inventions, and all achievement. It all starts with an idea. All the great businesses, works of art, books, films, etc., all started with an idea. There was nothing to validate that what we wanted or that this idea was even possible. That is why we can be misled by our senses. That though we see no evidence of what we want in our circumstances, then it's easy to dismiss the idea itself. But when we use our higher senses, and then it goes back to this idea of cultivating our beliefs, the belief that what we want is possible. And through repetition and through affirmations, meaning that we focus on repetitive thoughts and phrases and visuals and ideas that over time, if we inject enough emotion into them, then subconsciously we can really believe it. These ideas are possible, whatever they may be. And that's really how many of our beliefs have been shaped, have been through repetitive thoughts and actions that have over time shaped our beliefs based on our perceptions and our interpretations of the events that happen outside of us. So it all starts with an idea. It's with our thoughts and what's happening in our internal world that can determine what happens in our external world. So Claude says that even though the decision you make may not be the best one, the mere deciding gives you strength and raises your morale. It's the fear of doing the wrong thing that attracts the wrong thing. Decide and act, and the chances are that your troubles will fade into thin air, whether you make a mistake or not. All great men are men of quick decision, which flows from their intuition, their accumulated knowledge and previous experience. So learn to be quick in making decisions and audacious in your actions. This is a really bold statement by Claude Bristol, because it really leads to my next point, is that we have to be honest with ourselves. In order to take action towards the direction of where we want to go, we have to be honest with ourselves about what it is that we really want. I mean, what we really, really want. Not what other people think we should want or what society deems appropriate, but what we really want. And we have to be honest with ourselves. And maybe the reason why we've struggled so long with getting what it is that we want, a desired outcome, whether it's a relationship, a certain amount of money, a certain type of career, feeling a certain way, achieving something, whatever that may be, it's because ultimately we don't believe it's possible, and we're not really being honest with ourselves about what it is that we want. If you want to make a certain amount of money, there's nothing wrong with that. Be honest with yourself about it. And when we cut through the fog and we're honest with ourselves about what it is that we want, and we lay it out on the table, we write it down, then that's when I believe we finally begin to move in the direction of where we want to go. And the action that we can take is as simple as just writing it down on paper. This practice is incredibly powerful in writing down our thoughts and desires and goals. And when we believe in this process, that by writing our desires down, writing the beliefs that we would like to embrace, then that moves us in a much better direction of where we want to go. And then this helps us make better decisions. That decision or action could be simply sending an email or a phone call to somebody that can help you start a business. It could be writing that manuscript, writing that one chapter you've been delaying for a long time. It could be finally investing in that stock, maybe you've been holding off for a while. It could be a number of action steps. You don't have to know every step along the way. Just take the first step. When you take that first step, when you meet destiny halfway, as I like to call it, then things, I believe, begin to happen because you get in the flow of life. You're not obsessed about the outcome. You're more concerned with the process itself of getting into this state of flow where you're so immersed in life, you get to a point that life reveals itself to you. So, what you exhibit outwardly, you are inwardly. You are the product of your own thought. What you believe yourself to be, you are. As I said, our beliefs are shaped by repetitive thoughts and actions. So, if we are to change our beliefs, it's required then that we become self aware of our thoughts and actions. And when we start to recognize that we are not defined just by our body, by our mind, by our circumstances, but by our awareness, then no longer do we become so attached to our misfortunes and our failures, or even our successes for that matter. We can write a new script. We can create a new destiny because we detach ourselves from our current circumstances and our current plights. And we can make new choices and new decisions that can help us move in an entirely new direction in a matter of moments. Just by recognizing this alone could be life-changing. So it's a matter of detachment. We're not being defined by our circumstances or our bodies or our minds or whatever you want to call it, whatever physical attachments we may have to our physical world. But there's a paradox to this. And that is that we are spiritual beings, and it's important that we satisfy the spiritual aspect of ourselves. But we are also physical beings. And we have to recognize that we live in a physical world and that there's certain physical and psychological needs that we need satisfying if we are to live a better life. And that means becoming that person that we've always wanted to be, becoming that person that lives out the life that we want to live. How does this person dress? How do they communicate? How do they stand? How do they walk? What is their gait like? How do they communicate with other people? Think about this person, who this person is. What are their mannerisms? What car do they drive? And begin in some way to incorporate that into your life. And this practice alone could be life-changing. We can see immediate results by beginning to become that person that we've always wanted to be. And to reemphasize the importance of thought, thought is the original source of all wealth, all success, and all material gain, all great discoveries and inventions, and all of achievement. Without it, there would be no great empires, no great fortunes, no great transcontinental rail lines, no modern conveniences. In fact, there would be no advance over life in the most primitive ages. So to harness the power of thought, as I've said before, it requires becoming aware of our thoughts and actions and measuring the results that we're getting. And if we're not getting the desired results we want in any aspect of our life, it requires then that we begin to change our thoughts and actions that are much more productive or help us move to wherever it is that we want to go. And the practice of self-awareness could be through meditation. Meditation is a practice. But just by listening to this lecture, it is a form of self-awareness because we declare that I am aware. You become aware of your thoughts and actions and your circumstances. You detach yourself from your physical self and realize that you are a spiritual being in a physical world. And you can decide then to change your thoughts that can lead to new positive actions and behaviors. So you can see then the importance of detachment and the importance of self-awareness in navigating the world that we live in today. And you can see there's some paradoxes there. But sometimes paradoxes are a necessity in understanding life itself. You must have a mental pattern clearly drawn in your mind. Ask yourself, where am I headed? What is my goal? Have I visualized just what I really want? If success is to be measured in terms of wealth, can you fix the amount in figures? If in terms of achievement, can you specify it definitely? This goes back to what I was talking about. that you want to clearly define what it is that you want and be honest with yourself. And this is important. And actually, this is something I haven't mentioned in many of my lectures, the importance of being truthful to yourself about what it is that you want. Don't be ashamed about what it is that you want. If it's something, if you want a material possession like a car or like a home, that's fine. Use whatever it is that you can help you visualize the kind of life that you want to live and be clear about that. And not only be clear, imagine, visualize, see yourself in this current, in that desired circumstance. What is it that you want? If there's a specific amount of wealth, how much is that? And don't be realistic. Be honest with yourself about what it is that you want. You'll, in time, determine ultimately what is a good figure for you in terms of the amount of money that you want to accumulate. But be specific in terms of what it is that you want. And again, going back to the beginning of the quote about having a mental pattern clearly drawn out in your mind, this reminds me of Charlie Munger, who, as the making of this, recently passed away. And his importance of mental models. There have been several books written on this subject, on Charlie Munger's analysis and his belief in the importance of mental models. What kind of mental model do you want to have? How do you want to think on a daily basis? We can determine how we think. We have the power to do that. This is not necessarily easy because we do have these pre-programmed subconscious habits we've held since childhood. But it is doable. But again, it goes back to self-awareness. And when we can really think about and highlight or write down the mental patterns or way of thinking that we want to incorporate in our life, then that can help us reshape our beliefs. We are molded also by the thoughts of others, by what we hear in our social life, what we read in newspapers, magazines, and books, what we hear in the movies, the theater, and on the radio, even by chance remarks from the conversation of bystanders. And these thoughts bombard us constantly. Some of them that accord with our own inmost thoughts and also open the way to greater visions in our life are helpful. But often there are thoughts that are upsetting, that weaken our self-confidence and turn us away from our high purposes. It is these outside thoughts that are the troublemakers, and later I shall point out how you can keep free of them. Now, the Magic of Believing was written, I believe, in 1949, back in the late 1940s. It was after World War II. So this quote, this excerpt from The Magic of Believing, is just as relevant today as it was when it was written back in the late 1940s. Because whether we realize it or not, we are hypnotized and indoctrinated into believing certain beliefs that go against our self-interest, and that is because of the constant bombardment of negative content we are exposed to by social media, the 24-hour news cycle, etc. Negativity is everywhere. Just turn on the news, turn on social media, and it's a never-ending barrage of negativity that makes us feel helpless and that we're victims, and helps shape our negative beliefs that ultimately shape our personality and personal reality. So as I've said several times, in order to combat this, it requires that we become aware of this, that our personality is being shaped by the negativity we are bombarded to on a daily basis. And if we are to challenge this, then it means that we have to shut off these negative sources. That means probably tuning out social media for the time being, cutting back on the consumption of news that we engage in on a consistent basis, and perhaps considering exposing ourselves to more positive content like this lecture, for example, other books and personal growth content that can help you feel better about yourself and help reshape your beliefs, where you begin to believe that you are much more powerful than what you're led on to believe, and that you have the ability to shape and create the life you deem fit, and where you have the ability to help others in that process. So it's understanding that we are being hypnotized on a daily basis, whether we realize it or not, and that some of our beliefs may not even be our own. They were a direct result of the negativity we've been exposed to, and the gossip and other things that we've been told by even people within our close circle, our friends and family, our sphere of influence. So we must stand guard at the gate of our subconscious mind of combating all this negative influence that we're exposed to on a daily basis. So the truth is that when you talk about what you're going to do, you scatter your forces. You lose the close connection with the subconscious, and you frequently find that unless you do as directed, you will have to start all over again in your program of achievement. So what Claude is saying is that we have to be very careful who we disclose our dreams and goals to, because chances are the person that we disclose our dreams and goals to will dismiss it or maybe give a casual nod of approval, only where you begin to feel that that person does not believe that what you want is even possible. So we must be very cautious with who we disclose our dreams and goals to. Preferably a mentor or somebody that you know will support you and give you the right feedback necessary to move ahead. So keep your ideas and goals and dreams to yourself for the time being. And there will be a time where you can begin to market and promote your idea and goal, whatever that may be, especially if it's a business. But in the beginning stages, we must be very careful who we disclose this to. Because if we expose ourselves and tell our dreams and goals to people who don't have our best interests at heart, that could set us back. And there's a saying that you are the 5 people you surround yourself to. So if you surround yourself with people that don't have your best interests at heart, chances are that can hurt your ability to succeed in whatever it is you're trying to do. So then, what do you seek? Pay the price and take it away. There is no limit to the supply, but the more precious the thing you seek, the higher the price. For everything we obtain, we must barter the gold of our own spirits. Where to find the gold of all the powerful? One secures the gold of the spirit when he finds himself. When he finds himself, he finds freedom in all riches, achievement, and prosperity. There is a lot to unpack in this last excerpt from The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol here. And what Claude is saying is that for whatever it is that we want, there is a price to be paid. If we want a new job with a higher salary, it may require that we may have to work some longer hours for the time being. We may have to move potentially. We may have to work for an employer or a boss that maybe we may have some disagreements with at first. If we want to have a relationship, it may require that we make some sacrifices on our end. So there is a price to be paid. But the ultimate price for obtaining what we seek is replacing the negative emotions and thoughts that we've entertained for a long time and replacing them by more empowering beliefs. But to reshape our beliefs then, it is embracing the process of finding ourselves and finding who we really are. Again, it goes back to being honest with not only what we want, but who we want to be. And when we cut through the fog and be truthful about what we want, about who we really want to be and what we would like to have. And an example of this could be that you could say, well, I would like to have $5 million in the next 5 years, which is great if you have that goal in mind. But why do you really want this? It could be the reason we want this money is because you want to have freedom and autonomy. You would like to help others. You like to have more opportunities and experiences. So what you can do is rather than focusing on the $5 million, you can focus on the underlying reasons and emotions behind it. And by doing so, it can help you subconsciously believe that what you want is possible. But where to find the gold of the all-powerful? It is within yourself. You are a gold mine of possibility and potential if you know where to look. And it starts with being truthful with who you are and what you want. And when you become aware of this fact, it becomes much easier to reshape our beliefs because then we're no longer attached to our circumstances. And that gives us the opportunity to go within and reshape our beliefs to where we begin believing that what we want is possible and doable and can happen and will happen. So when we live life on the edge of anticipation that what we want is coming into our lives in some way, shape, or form, life becomes that much better and magical. So thank you so much for listening to this lecture. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to watch all my lectures on personal growth, wealth building, and entrepreneurship. Thank you so much and have a great night. Thanks.